Up next in the broadcast, this week's surprise meeting between high-level military officials between the two Koreas has many wondering what the two sides are hoping to accomplish. And some experts believe Pyongyang may be looking for ways to express regret over the sinking of a South Korean warship over 4 years ago. President Park asked family-owned companies in Italy to share their experiences with Korea's small and mid-sized firms ahead of her debut at the ASEM gathering. And the World Health Organization attempts to clamp down on fear running through the U.S., saying that a major outbreak of Ebola there would be highly unlikely. Primetime News begins now.
Welcome to the program, everybody. You're watching Primetime News. Live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin with the 10th summit of the Asia-Europe meeting, which has officially begun in the northern Italian city of Milan.
And President Park Geun-hye, who is attending this global summit for the first time since taking office last year, is expected to seek support for her Eurasia Initiative, a campaign to link energy and logistics infrastructure between Asia and Europe. She's also due to address some 50 world leaders during a session on international issues. Earlier, President Park and Danish Prime Minister Helle Thorning-Schmidt released a joint statement after holding talks on the sidelines of the ASEM. And the two leaders agreed to cooperate more in the areas of startup ventures, innovation, and renewable energy. And the Korean president is also scheduled for one-on-one meetings with the French president and the Chinese premier later in the day. And turning to more analysis on Wednesday's surprise meeting between high-level military officials from the two Koreas, the South Korean government says they discussed how to ease border tensions, especially in the West Sea.
But experts seem to believe there's more to the story than that. Our Hwang Seung-yin reports on how sanctions and an apology over the sinking of a South Korean warship may be at play.
A familiar face was present at Wednesday's inter-Korean military talks. North Korea's chief delegate Kim Young-chul is suspected by the South as having engineered the attack on the South Korean warship Cheonan 4 years ago. He also threatened Seoul on television last year ahead of joint military drills between South Korea and the United States.
We will counter with our diverse, miniaturized nuclear weapons. With the press of a button, everything will turn into a sea of fire.
Experts say North Korea may be seeking to discuss the sinking of the warship and the South Korean sanctions that followed at the upcoming high-level talks slated for late October or early November. Seoul has been adamant that the heavy economic sanctions will not be lifted until Pyongyang takes responsibility for its actions.
North Korea could seek a compromise by expressing regret for the incident in the West Sea in 2010 and promising efforts to prevent recurrences.
The sanctions, which halted nearly all inter-Korean trade and prevented fresh South Korean investments in the north, have been a major obstacle in improving ties between the two Koreas. Others say North Korea proposed the military talks to get a grasp of South Korea's true intentions and to set the agenda for their planned high-level talks. Hwang Seung-hye, Arirang News.
Certainly, we've been seeing a lot of contradictory, mixed signals from North Korea comes out for a high-level military dialogue, but at the same time, it's angry enough with anti-Pyongyang leaflets to shoot at towards South Korea.
Right, and to help us better understand what's exactly going on between the two Koreas, John Delury from Yonsei University is joining us now via Skype. Thanks so much for being here with us. Let's start off with yesterday's high-level military talks. There's not much breakthrough, they say.
Yeah, and there was some criticism that it was done in a sort of stealth mode. I would say in defense of the authorities, a relationship as sensitive as inter-Korean, mill-to-mill talks, you're going to have to let them do things quietly. So, and along those lines, I would say we really have to take the official report out with a grain of salt. Even if they did see some promising opportunities, they might underplay that in the public statement about it. The two Koreas are talking. There seems to be political will on both sides that they want to keep talking. So I think we shouldn't draw rash conclusions just from one meeting, whether they announce a breakthrough or not.
And it's a good thing that they're talking, but it was very unusual, though, of Pyongyang to shoot machine guns towards South Korea last Friday, angry with those leaflets. Does this mean the leaflets are working, or what is it?
Well, the leaflets working, it depends on, what is their purpose. But consistently, North Korea has been incensed by these and has warned many times that they would take military action. So many of us have just been waiting for the day when there would actually be firing, and thankfully no one was hurt in the incident. They consider this a provocation, a South Korean provocation, part of psychological warfare against them and their system, and a violation of their sovereignty. And frankly, here living in Seoul, I mean, if the winds blew the other way and North Korean balloons were floating onto Yonsei campus, I don't know how we would all feel about it.
So Kim Jong-un has been missing key events during the regime's, big ceremonies during this time. He stayed out of the public eye for weeks. That drew a lot of attention and speculation. What's your perspective on him reappearing with a walking stick, and what do you think about the timing of his comeback?
Well, there were a lot of conspiracy theories while he's gone. Now there's new theories about why he was gone and why he reappeared. I think at the end of the day, it was driven by medical necessity. We've seen those videos over and over of how difficult it was becoming for him just to walk around. So I think we can fairly safely deduce that he had some kind of procedure. Maybe he was told by his doctors to stay off the leg or his legs for some period of time, roughly a month. And then, I think the propaganda machine in the North didn't want to show him on crutches or maybe even in a wheelchair. And so he had to be hidden from view for a while. Really what we need to reflect on is how excited we got in the search for him. And really the media environment got a little bit out of control, where any theory was equally plausible. So I think we need to slow down with our analysis and our assessment and let facts lead our conclusions.
Which is basically what we're doing right now every day. But so looking forward, Professor, Seoul has proposed October 30th as a date for inter-Korean high-level talks. Do you think they're ready to yield any substantive results at this point?
Well, first of all, I consider it a little bit of a bad sign that we're hearing Seoul's proposal for the dates. It's always better when you hear the two sides agree to the date. Huge breakthrough? No. I wouldn't expect huge breakthroughs coming out of that meeting.
All right, so we shouldn't expect a quick fix. Thank you so much, Mr. John Delury from Yonsei University, for joining us tonight.
Good to talk to you.
South Korea has once again called on Japan to resolve issues related to its wartime sexual enslavement right away. But instead of apologizing, Tokyo is reportedly getting ready to better communicate its stance on this matter on the global stage. Kim Min-ji has the details.
South Korea's deputy ambassador to the United Nations is calling on Japan to solve the sexual enslavement issue in a prompt manner. Speaking at the Third Committee of the UN General Assembly on Wednesday local time, Han Chung-hee said the unresolved issue was a key part of tackling sexual violence during conflict. He said Japan's continual denials undermine a landmark statement Tokyo issued in the early 1990s that acknowledged this fact and constitutes a direct challenge to the historical truth. Han added that considering the advanced age of the victims, this issue needs to be taken care of without delay. And moving in the opposite direction of Seoul's request that Tokyo acknowledge and show sincerity for its wartime atrocities, Japan has reiterated its previous stance, saying the legal issue of reparation was resolved long ago. In another move that's sure to stir up tension, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party will establish a special committee that will deal with the sex slave issue. According to the Japanese daily Nihon Keizai Shimbun, the party will set up a committee this month aimed at restoring Japan's honor and will be in charge of dealing with related information to be relayed around the world. Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida also says Tokyo will consider the best course in order to win understanding from the international community. Ahead of the 50th anniversary next year of normalizing ties, the two Northeast Asian neighbors don't seem to be narrowing their deep diplomatic differences. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Concerns over Korea's shaky economic recovery continue piling up as even exporters, which have sustained the domestic economy during difficult times before, are now struggling due to the persistently weak economic conditions in the Eurozone. Our Hwang Ji-ae has the details.
Sluggish domestic consumption and investment in Korea have caused headaches for the nation's economic policymakers, but concerns over exports are about to turn them into full-blown migraines. Facing a slump in Eurozone economies, the central bank projects slowing growth in exports, the country's traditional growth engine, down the road.
It's a fact that the Eurozone economy is in a bad state because exports take up half of Korea's GDP. The global economy will, of course, have a massive impact on the domestic economy.
And the situation at home is not much better. Korea's facility investment in August dropped over 10% from the previous month, while overall industrial output sank 0.6%. In the face of such gloomy data, the central bank has lowered its key interest rate to a record low 2%. But experts say that will only provide a short-term boost in spurring investment, and that building a business-friendly environment is more critical.
Although local companies investing in overseas markets is inevitable, the government should work on improving business conditions to bring at least some of those investments back home.
Experts add that private consumption will only see a boost with the introduction of structural reforms that solve the mounting household debt problem and aging population. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
More Koreans are going mobile when trading stocks. The Korea Exchange says some 44% of all local stock trades were done on smartphones and tablet PCs as of July this year. This accounts for more than a quarter of the total value of stocks traded. But with this rise comes more frequent technical errors as well. In the first half of last year, 15% of technical errors came from mobile devices-based trades, but that figure more than doubled during the same period this year.
Kia Motor says Pope Francis' decision to use its compact car Seoul as the Pope Mobile back in August when he visited Korea triggered a sudden rush of interest in this model. Kia Motor says its sales of the Seoul model in Europe topped 1,600 in September. That's up almost 120% from the month before. And in Italy, sales of that compact vehicle jumped 150% last month. The world's largest telecommunications conference, the ITU meeting, is set to kick off in Korea's southeastern port city of Busan next Monday, and eyeing to seize this chance to show off their latest gadgets and technologies to the rest of the world are Korean IT firms. Song Ji-sun reports.
During the three-week ITU Plenipotentiary Conference, a handful of related conventions will be held at the Busan Exhibition and Convention Center, ranging in topics from health ICT to big data. They will all provide a glimpse into the future. The fifth-generation mobile network will be at the heart of all the state-of-the-art telecom technologies to be exhibited during the ITU conference period. The mobile technology enables users to download a high-definition movie in just 1 second. Samsung Electronics on Wednesday succeeded in establishing a data transfer environment of 1.2 gigabytes per second inside an automobile running at 100 kilometers per hour. Korea's three major mobile carriers, SK Telecom, KT and LG U+, will unveil their latest technologies at the World IT Show, kicking off with the ITU conference. SK Telecom aims to become the world's leading provider of 5G technology, which is often referred to as being beyond 2020 mobile communications technologies. For the exhibition, SKT will be transferring its mobile team to the port city, which will allow people to experience a smart home environment connected through the Internet of Things. KT will set up a ubiquitous zone to display its smart energy, healthcare, and integrated security systems. On the sidelines of the main conference, the CEOs of Korea's leading ICT companies will also share their insights and unveil their visions for the future. The speakers will include the chiefs of internet portals Naver and Tom Kakao, and KT President Hwang Chang-yu will give a keynote speech on the creative economy and Gigatopia on the 27th of October at the Global ICT Premier Forum. 송지선, Arirang News.
And turning to another global gathering, as part of an international convention on biological diversity under the United Nations, representatives from about 150 countries wrapped up high-level talks in the eastern Korean city of Pyeongchang this Thursday and adopted a declaration that summarizes details made during the three-week event. Our Kwon So-hwa has more.
The Kangwon Declaration, which summarizes initiatives and suggestions made during this year's UN Convention on Biodiversity, was adopted on Thursday. High-level officials at the two-day meeting aimed to assess and adjust previously set goals to come up with sustainable measures to preserve biodiversity across the globe. The declaration includes the so-called Pyeongchang Roadmap that has been reorganized to be more attainable. It includes plans to enhance technical and scientific cooperation, as well as increasing financial resources. This year's convention is a midterm review of the implementation of a strategic plan for biodiversity to protect some 1.5 million species on Earth. Representatives from scores of countries gathered at the conference and agreed that the global community has fallen short of achieving goals that were to be completed by 2020. One of the problems is a lack of financial resources. Currently, less than 20% of necessary funds for maintaining biodiversity have been pledged. Korea is expected to double its development assistance in the area of biodiversity by 2015 and take on a bigger role in bridging the gap between developed and developing nations. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
The World Health Organization says a major outbreak of Ebola in the U.S. and elsewhere in the West is unlikely amid growing fears of the disease jumping across the country.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, this announcement comes after a second healthcare worker in Texas became infected with Ebola. What did the WHO exactly say?
Well, the UN agency downplayed fears that the deadly virus could rapidly spread in the U.S. and other Western nations, given the strong health systems in place. It follows similar statements made by the CDC and other health authorities that a major outbreak was extremely unlikely and that the focus should be on West Africa. On Wednesday, President Barack Obama said the U.S. needed to improve its response to new cases.
First of all, what I've directed the CDC to do is that as soon as somebody is diagnosed with Ebola, we want a rapid response team, a SWAT team, essentially from the CDC, to be on the ground as quickly as possible, hopefully within 24 hours.
Meanwhile, the second Dallas nurse to be infected with Ebola arrived in Atlanta on Wednesday night. Officials said the 29-year-old patient was being transferred to Emory University Hospital, which had successfully treated 2 people who contracted the disease in West Africa. And shifting to Hong Kong, the city's embattled leader has reopened the door for dialogue with pro-democracy protesters following days of clashes with police. Chief Executive C.Y. Leung made the offer to student leaders on Thursday, saying he hoped talks would start next week. The protesters are demanding fully free elections for Hong Kong, but Leung reiterated that Beijing was unwilling to compromise.
The most constructive thing that the Hong Kong government can offer the students is to sit down and listen to the students what we can do together within the framework decision of the National People's Congress Standing Committee.
Tensions keep on rising in Hong Kong, with a video going viral showing police beating an unarmed demonstrator. The incident occurred as the city saw some of its worst violence Wednesday since the rallies began over 2 weeks ago. And finally, the tech industry is abuzz as Apple is set to hold a major press event at its company headquarters in California in just a few hours. A series of online leaks and inside sources all point to a focus on its popular tablets and iMac computers. Both the iPad Air and iPad Mini are expected to finally get Touch ID technology, as well as receive a boost in performance. Not to be outdone, Google launched on Wednesday several new devices for its Nexus line. They include a 6-inch smartphone, a 9-inch tablet, and a new TV set-top box that will play mobile games. The new products will all run Google's latest operating system, Android 5.0, also known as Lollipop. And that wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Che with your sports rundown. And leading off with baseball in the KBO. Samsung, Nexon, and NC earned the top 3 playoff berths with the final spot left undecided as of Thursday. And that brings us to the matchup between the SK Wyverns and Tusan Bears. Now SK fighting for survival calls up ace Kim Kwang-hyun. Tusan has Lee Hyun-sung. Now we go to the first inning. Tusan's Kim Hyun-soo brings the first runner home. And then third inning, more Tusan as Kim has another RBI in the 3-run rally. Eventually, it's 5-1 before SK's Lee Jae-won drives one home in the 5th inning. And 2 more in the 6th inning as part of a 4-run inning. It's tied 5-5. But SK gets 2 much-needed runs in the 10th inning. And a 4-6-3 double play ends it. And SK wins 7-5. And with the win, SK stays alive, and they face another must-win game on Friday. Meanwhile, in the other matchup, Kia beats Samsung also 7-5 as Samsung wraps up their season. Kia has 1 left. And over in the MLB, history was made as the Kansas City Royals swept the Baltimore Orioles in the AL Championship Series for their first World Series in 29 long years. And beating the Orioles 2-1 in Game 4, their stellar pitching and small ball prowess was on display yet again as they swept up another opponent for the pennant. And it's been almost 3 decades since winning the October Classic in 1985. And the San Francisco Giants are a win away from joining them as Buster Posey provided clutch runs at the plate en route to the 6-4 win over the St. Louis Cardinals. Now let's get to the KBL hardcourt for Thursday's meeting between the KCC Aegis and the ET Land Elephants. Now both teams were battling for their second win as KCC takes the 8-point lead into the half behind Deshaun Sims, who puts in 28 on the night. But the tables turned by the 4th quarter with ET Land's Jung Young-sam and Ricardo Powell catching heat, and the Elephants win 89-84. Meanwhile, in the other game, Moon Tae-young drops 23 points as Mobis beats SK 74-64. And finally to golf, U.S. Open champ Martin Kaymer beat out the other major winners and Jim Furyk to win the PGA Grand Slam of Golf. Despite a sloppy back 9, he managed to recover in the final 2 holes to finish tied with Bubba Watson at 6 under par, forcing a playoff. There, Kaymer sank the 7-foot putt to take the trophy and $600,000 prize. Meanwhile, the LPGA's KEB Hana Bank Championship kicked off in Incheon in Korea. 23-year-old Kang Hae-ji's 5 under par put her 2 shots ahead of the pack after round 1. And that wraps it up for me. Stay tuned for your weather up next. Have a good night.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the weather updates. So we woke up to rainy conditions here in Seoul. Showers have since cleared up, but we are getting higher than normal levels of fine dust in some regions. Aside from that, we are under fairly clear skies with strong winds blowing nationwide. As for tomorrow, daytime highs will shoot up by the afternoon, leading to a greater gap in temperatures between the day and night. Otherwise, late autumn conditions will stick around for a while, so it would be a good idea to check out the coloring of leaves because another round round of showers awaits us next week. On to Friday's readings. Seoul will top out at 20, Daegu and Gwangju 22, Busan 21. On to other regions. Daejeon and Jeju hits 20, Dokdo 18, and Mount Kumgang reaches 9. That'll do it for now. I'll be back with more updates after midnight. See you soon.
All right, thank you, Bo-kyung. That's Primetime News on this Thursday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Chery. Enjoy your evening. We'll see you soon.